The message came through every communication channel at once. Hana Choi sat at her station in Earth's orbital command center, watching the alien transmission repeat across her screens. Her hands shook as she listened to the Draconian ultimatum for the third time. This is Fleet Commander Vraxis of the Draconian Empire. We claim this world. You have 72 hours to surrender or be destroyed. Hana forwarded the message to Admiral Una Park and tried to steady her breathing. She had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing prepared her for this. The Draconians were legends in the galaxy, bad legends. They had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds over 3,000 years. Nobody had ever stopped them. Admiral Park called an emergency meeting within the hour. Captain Minho Kang arrived from his ship, still wearing his flight suit. Dr. Sora Im rushed in from the research labs. They gathered around the holographic display showing the approaching fleet. 300 warships, Admiral Park said quietly. Our intelligence says each one can destroy a city in minutes. They're crossing Jupiter's orbit now. They'll reach Earth in 3 days. What did the Galactic Council say? Minho asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. They said we're on our own. Admiral Park pulled up another transmission. An alien diplomat appeared, one of the peaceful species from the Crescent Nebula. The creature looked genuinely sad as it delivered Earth's death sentence. Humanity is too new to space, the alien explained. You have only been traveling between stars for 83 years. The Draconians have never lost a battle. We cannot risk war with them to save one primitive species. I am sorry. Evacuate who you can. The recording ended. The room fell silent. Primitive, Minho repeated bitterly. We put a man on the moon in 1969. We built quantum computers. We cured cancer. But because we don't have their fancy shields and weapons, we're primitive. How many people can we evacuate? Sora asked, always the practical one. Admiral Park shook her head. Maybe 10 million if we use every ship we have. But where would they go? Which alien species will take Earth's refugees when they're too afraid to help us fight? Then we fight, Minho said firmly. With what? Admiral Park pulled up Earth's defense fleet on the display. 47 ships floated there in digital form. They looked impressive for human engineering. Against the Draconian fleet, they looked like toys. We have 47 military vessels. Most are patrol frigates. We have 3 destroyers and 1 carrier. That's it. That's everything humanity has in space. We can't just give up, Hana said from her station. Earth survived ice ages and asteroids. We survived plagues and world wars. We even survived ourselves and our own weapons. We didn't come this far to just quit. Admiral Park studied the young communications officer. Then she looked at Minho and Sora. Something hardened in her expression. You're right. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them Earth refuses to evacuate. Tell them we stand and fight. The next 72 hours moved in a strange blur. Earth's government met in emergency sessions. Military forces mobilized even though everyone knew it was hopeless. Scientists worked frantically on new weapons that wouldn't be ready in time. Religious leaders held services. Families held each other. The world waited. Minho took his ship, Soul's Pride, out to join the defense fleet. It felt good to be doing something, even something futile. His crew tried to stay optimistic, but he saw the fear in their eyes. They were going to die defending their home. At least it meant something. Dr. Sora Im watched the Draconian fleet approach from the command center. She studied every scan, every piece of data. The ships were biological, partially alive. They could heal themselves if damaged. Their shields could absorb anything Earth's weapons could throw at them. The Draconian warriors inside were 12 feet tall, stronger than any human, and trained from birth for war. They're slowing down, Hana suddenly announced. The fleet is reducing speed at the Mars orbit. Admiral Park leaned forward. Why would they slow down? Maybe they want to give us one more chance to surrender, someone suggested. But Minho had a different thought. Or maybe they want to scan us first. Learn about us before they attack. He was right. The Draconian ships had activated every sensor they possessed. They were scanning Earth with incredible intensity. Not just military bases and weapons, but everything. Cities and farms, broadcasting towers and internet traffic, museums and schools. They were studying human civilization in detail. What are they looking for? Sora wondered aloud. The Draconians spent 14.7 seconds analyzing everything about humanity. Their biological computers processed information about human art and human wars, human music and human weapons, human kindness and human cruelty. 8 billion people living complicated lives on one small blue planet. Then every Draconian ship went dark. All 300 warships stopped moving at exactly the same instant. Their lights went out. Their weapons powered down. Their engines fell silent. They just drifted in space like dead things. The command center erupted in confusion. Alarms blared. People shouted questions nobody could answer. What happened? Admiral Park demanded. I don't know, Hana replied, her fingers flying over her controls. They just stopped. All of them at once. No distress signals, no explosions. They're just dead in space. Are they dead? Minho asked over the communication channel from his ship. Sora was already scanning the alien vessels. Her face went pale as she read the results. No, life signs are still strong. The ship's biological systems are functioning normally. The Draconians themselves are alive. But nothing is moving. It's like they all fell asleep at the same time. That's impossible, Admiral Park said. But it happened, Sora replied. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The mighty Draconian Empire's entire advanced fleet had stopped functioning near Earth. No weapon had been fired. No defense grid had activated. The humans hadn't done anything except exist. Somewhere in the Galactic Council chambers, alien diplomats stared at their screens in disbelief. The species that had been too primitive to save had just witnessed the impossible. The undefeated Draconians had simply stopped. On Earth, people didn't celebrate. They were too confused, too frightened. What had just happened? What had they done? In his ship, Minho stared at the drifting Draconian warships and felt a chill run down his spine. They had been seconds from certain death. Now they floated in space surrounded by the silent fleet of their enemies. This doesn't make sense, he said quietly. Admiral Park agreed. No, it doesn't. Which means we need to find out what happened. Minho, prepare a boarding team. We're going to visit our guests. As Earth's ships cautiously approached the silent Draconian fleet, nobody knew they were about to discover something that would change the galaxy forever. The Draconians hadn't been defeated by a weapon. They had been defeated by something far more dangerous to beings who thought in simple terms of strong and weak, conqueror and conquered. They had tried to understand humanity. 16 hours had passed since the Draconian fleet went silent. The galaxy was in chaos. Every news network, every government, every species with access to long-range sensors was watching Earth's solar system. The impossible had happened, and nobody could explain it. Tai Ho Yoon led the first boarding team onto a Draconian warship. He was a salvage expert, used to exploring damaged vessels and abandoned stations. But nothing in his experience prepared him for what he found. The ship was alive. The walls pulsed with biological rhythms. The air was warm and humid. Everything functioned normally. But the crew was gone in a way that made no sense. Admiral? Tejo spoke into his communicator, his voice shaking. You need to see this. The Draconian warriors sat at their stations or stood at their posts. Their eyes were open. Their massive chests rose and fell with breath, but they didn't move. They didn't respond. When Tejo waved his hand in front of a warrior's face, there was no reaction. The 12-foot-tall reptilian creature just stared at nothing. They're alive, Taiho reported. Heart rates are normal. They're breathing. But it's like nobody's home. Dr. Sora Im arrived with her medical team 6 hours later. She had brought every scanner and instrument Earth possessed for studying alien biology. She started with the ship's commander, the largest Draconian on the bridge. The results confused her. His brain is working. I can see neural activity, but it's all wrong. The patterns don't make sense. It's like his entire mind is running in circles, processing the same information over and over again. What information? Captain Minho asked. He had accompanied Sora, curious and disturbed in equal measure. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. They checked every Draconian on the ship. All of them showed the same impossible condition. Alive, but absent. Present, but gone. Their consciousness trapped somewhere that scanners couldn't reach. Back on Earth, the Galactic Council demanded answers. Ambassador Telvin, the same alien who had told humanity they were doomed, now asked pointed questions through a secure channel. "What weapon did you use?" the alien ambassador asked Admiral Park. "We didn't use any weapon," Park replied honestly. "We were preparing to die when they just stopped." "That is impossible. Ships do not simply stop. Warriors do not simply stop. What did you do?" "Nothing. I swear we did nothing." But the galaxy didn't believe her. Fear spread faster than light through communication networks. If Earth possessed a weapon that could stop the Draconians without firing a shot, what else could they do? Species that had ignored humanity now watched them with suspicion and terror. Engineer Jinho Baek was part of the technical team examining the Draconian ship's systems. Unlike the biological crew, he focused on the technological aspects. What he found was both fascinating and disturbing. The ships were scanning Earth, he explained to Admiral Park. Not military targets, they were scanning everything. Broadcasting towers, internet servers, social media networks, entertainment channels, museums, libraries, schools. They were downloading human culture. "Why would they do that?" Minho asked. "Maybe they wanted to understand us before they attacked," Sora suggested. "Know your enemy and all that?" Jinho pulled up the data logs. They downloaded petabytes of information in those 14 seconds. Human history, human art, human music, human literature, information about our wars and our peace treaties, our religions and our sciences, everything that makes us human. Nario, a military psychologist, studied the timeline carefully. They tried to understand an entire species in 14 seconds. That's insane. You can't compress 8 billion individual lives, thousands of cultures, and 10,000 years of history into 14 seconds of analysis. "They tried," Jinho said quietly. "And then they stopped." Nari felt a cold understanding settle in her stomach. What if understanding us is what broke them? The room fell silent. "That doesn't make sense," Admiral Park said. "Understanding another species can't break your mind." "It can if your mind isn't built to handle contradictions," Nari replied. She pulled up information about Draconian psychology, the little bit humanity had gathered from other species. The Draconians are conquerors. They see the universe in simple terms: strong or weak, superior or inferior, predator or prey. For 3,000 years, every species they've met has fit neatly into their understanding. "And then they met us," Sora said slowly, beginning to understand. "And we don't fit," Nari continued. "We're not simply strong or weak, we're both. We're not purely good or evil. We're both. We build magnificent things and destroy them. We're capable of incredible kindness and terrible cruelty. We're tribal and we're global. We're rational and emotional. We're everything and nothing they can understand." Minho shook his head. "You're saying we broke their brains by being complicated?" "I'm saying maybe their brains aren't designed to process paradox. They need clear categories. They need simple answers. And humanity is anything but simple." Dr. Sora returned to the catatonic Draconian commander with new equipment. If Nari was right, she might be able to see what the warrior was experiencing. She attached advanced neural imaging scanners to the massive alien's head. What she saw made her blood run cold. The Draconian's mind was trapped in a loop. It was processing human experience over and over again. Memories that weren't his own, emotions from billions of people, joy and sorrow, love and hate, creation and destruction. Every contradiction in human nature playing simultaneously in his consciousness. "He's experiencing all of humanity at once," Sora whispered. "Every human who has ever lived, every emotion we've ever felt, every choice we've made. It's all there in his mind, contradicting itself endlessly. He can't escape it. He's trying to categorize it, to understand it, to fit it into his worldview, but he can't. So he just keeps trying. Forever." "That's torture," Minho said. "That's what happens when a mind built for certainty meets a species built on uncertainty," Nari replied. The news spread through Earth's scientific community quickly. Humanity hadn't built a weapon. Humanity was the weapon. Their psychological complexity, their contradictory nature, their refusal to fit into simple categories had broken an entire fleet. Some humans celebrated. They had defeated their enemies without firing a shot. But others, like Juan Seok, a military ethicist, felt deep discomfort. "We didn't mean to do this," Juan said during an emergency ethics committee meeting. "We didn't attack them. We just existed. And existing broke them. What does that make us?" "It makes us dangerous," Sora replied quietly. "Not because we're strong, but because understanding us is dangerous." News of Earth's nature spread through the galaxy faster than any human ship could travel. Alien species that had been preparing to make contact with humanity suddenly backed away. The Crescent Nebula Collective recalled their ambassadors. The Harmonious Federation closed their borders to any ship that had been near Earth. Fear rippled through interstellar civilization. The Draconians had been the galaxy's greatest military power. If they could be stopped by simply trying to understand one species, what did that mean for everyone else? What would happen if other species tried to study humanity too deeply? Quarantine proposals began circulating through the Galactic Council. Keep humanity contained. Don't let them spread. Don't let their complexity infect other species. On Earth, people didn't know whether to feel proud or ashamed. They had survived, but at what cost? They were alone in the galaxy now, feared instead of conquered. In the silent Draconian fleet, something was beginning to change. Deep in Fleet Commander Vraxis's trapped mind, new neural pathways were forming. His consciousness was adapting, building connections that could hold contradictions without breaking. The question nobody could answer yet was simple and terrifying. What would he become when he finally woke up? 6 weeks had passed since the Draconian fleet went silent. Earth's solar system was now surrounded by an invisible wall. The Galactic Council had declared a quarantine zone. No ships could enter or leave. Humanity was trapped, isolated not as punishment but as protection for everyone else. Sunho An stood in the diplomatic chamber, trying once again to reason with the Council's representatives. As Earth's first contact specialist, his job had always been to build bridges between humanity and alien species. Now he was fighting to tear down walls. "We didn't attack them," Sunho said, for what felt like the 100th time. "We didn't mean for this to happen. You can't punish us for existing." The holographic projection of Ambassador Telvin flickered. "This is not punishment, human Sunho. This is necessity. The Draconian Empire has declared your species a contamination risk. 17 other species are studying what happened, trying to weaponize your psychological complexity. Until we understand what you are, you must remain contained." "We're just people," Sunho replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "We're not weapons. We're not monsters. We're just human." "That is precisely what frightens us," the ambassador said before ending the transmission. Sunho slammed his hand on the console. Being feared was somehow worse than being conquered would have been. Meanwhile, Dr. Rena Cho had made her home in the medical bay of the flagship Draconian vessel. She had spent 6 weeks monitoring the catatonic warriors, hoping for any change. Most days brought nothing. Today was different. "I'm seeing neural activity spikes," Rena announced excitedly into her communicator. "In Fleet Commander Vraxis, his brain patterns are changing. I think he's waking up." Dr. Sora Im rushed to the Draconian vessel within the hour. Together, the two scientists watched as the massive alien's consciousness slowly reconstructed itself. It was like watching evolution happen in fast forward. Old neural pathways dissolved. New ones formed. The Draconian brain was learning to think in ways it had never been designed to think. "This is impossible," Sora whispered. "Neural architecture doesn't just change like this. Not in adult brains. Not in any species we know." "Maybe it does when survival depends on it," Rena replied. "He's adapting or dying. There's no middle option." Fleet Commander Vraxis's eyes moved. After 6 weeks of staring at nothing, his massive reptilian eyes tracked movement. He saw the two human scientists watching him. His jaw moved. Air passed through his vocal cords. "I understand." Now. His voice was rough from disuse, but clear. Admiral Park was summoned immediately. Captain Minho accompanied her. They stood before the 12-foot-tall warrior as he slowly sat up, his body stiff from weeks without movement. "What do you understand?" Admiral Park asked carefully. Vraxis looked at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. Paradox, contradiction, complexity. He turned his gaze to the humans. "You showed us mercy when we came to destroy you. This is illogical, and yet perfectly logical for your species. This contradiction would have killed my mind before. Now I can hold both thoughts at once." "What happened to you?" Minho asked. "I tried to understand you," Vraxis replied. "My entire fleet tried to understand humanity before we conquered you. It is standard practice. Know your enemy. But you are not an enemy that can be known through simple study." He stood slowly, towering over the humans. They tensed, but he made no aggressive move. "Your species contains multitudes," Vraxis continued. "Every human is a universe of contradictions. You are kind and cruel, wise and foolish. You create beauty and destroy it. You hurt each other and heal each other. You are simultaneously your own worst enemy and your greatest hope. My mind was not built to process such complexity. No Draconian mind is." "So what happened?" Sora asked. "My consciousness tried to categorize you. Strong or weak? Both. Good or evil? Both. Advanced or primitive? Both. Every answer contradicted itself. My neural pathways could not handle it. They locked in an endless loop, trying to solve an equation with no solution. I was trapped in your collective human experience, drowning in 8 billion contradictory lives." "That sounds horrible," Rena said softly. "It was death," Vraxis agreed, "but also transformation. My mind could either stay broken or evolve. I evolved. I built new pathways around your paradoxes. I learned to hold contradictions without requiring resolution. I learned to think like you think." Admiral Park processed this carefully. "How many of your warriors are changing like you?" "All of them. Slowly. Some faster than others. We are all becoming something new, something the Empire will not recognize." As if to prove his words, across the silent fleet, other Draconians began to wake. One by one, the warriors opened their eyes. They stood. They looked at their surroundings with new understanding. 450,000 Draconian warriors, all fundamentally changed by exposure to humanity's complexity. News of the awakening reached the Draconian Empire within days. The response was immediate and terrifying. The Empire's High Council sent a second fleet, larger than the first. But this fleet wasn't coming to retrieve their lost warriors. Kiwan Park, Admiral Yuna's aide, intercepted communications between the approaching fleet and the Empire's homeworld. What he heard made his blood freeze. "They're coming to kill us all," Kiwan reported to the Emergency Council meeting. "The Empire doesn't want their warriors back. They consider them contaminated, corrupted beyond saving, and they consider Earth the source of the contamination." "How big is the fleet?" Minho asked. 500 warships, and they're carrying a quantum cascade weapon. It's designed to destroy entire planets." Silence fell over the room. They had survived one Draconian fleet through accident. Now a larger fleet was coming with the specific goal of genocide. "When will they arrive?" Admiral Park asked. 72 hours. History was repeating itself, but this time Earth knew what was coming. Fleet Commander Vraxis requested an immediate meeting with Earth's leaders. He stood in the command center, surrounded by humans who had every reason to hate him but who listened anyway. "My warriors and I will fight for Earth," Vraxis said. "We will commandeer our ships and defend your world against the Empire." "Why would you do that?" Sunho asked. "They're your people." "They were my people," Vraxis corrected. "But I have been changed. We all have. You gave us something the Empire never allowed, the capacity to choose, to question, to change our minds. We came here as conquerors, but we have become something else, something that chooses its own path." Admiral Park studied the massive alien warrior. "If you fight the Empire, there's no going back. You'll be killing your own species." "We will be killing our own former selves," Vraxis replied. The beings we were would have destroyed you without hesitation. The beings we have become cannot stand by and watch innocents be murdered. This is another paradox I can now hold in my mind. Minho stepped forward. Earth's fleet will fight beside you. It's only fair since you got caught in this mess because of us. 47 ships and 300 biological warships against 500 Empire vessels, Admiral Park calculated aloud. The odds are still terrible. Dr. Sora had been thinking. Her scientific mind was working through a dangerous idea. What if we use the same thing that stopped the First Fleet? What if we broadcast human culture directly at them? Weaponize our own complexity? Rena looked horrified. That's what broke them in the first place. You want to do it intentionally? Would it even work a second time? Kiwan asked. They'll be expecting it now. Sora shook her head. Maybe not expecting it. The Empire doesn't understand what happened here. They think we use some kind of technology. They don't realize we are the weapon. This feels wrong, Sunho said, using our own nature as an attack. Everything about this situation is wrong, Admiral Park replied. But we're out of good options. If broadcasting our complexity gives us a chance, we take it. Fleet Commander Vraxis made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are already thinking in paradoxes. You hate using your nature as a weapon, but you will do it to survive. You want peace, but you prepare for war. You are mercy and violence at once. This is very human. Is that a good thing? Minho asked. It is a surviving thing, Vraxis replied. The galaxy is learning what your species has always known. Survival requires holding opposing truths simultaneously. The Empire comes to destroy you because they cannot accept this lesson. They would rather kill than learn. Admiral Park addressed the room. We have 72 hours. Awaken as many Draconian warriors as possible. Prepare our ships. And prepare to broadcast everything that makes us human directly at an approaching fleet that wants us dead. And if it doesn't work? Someone asked. Admiral Park's expression was grim. Then we die fighting. Together. Change Draconians and paradoxical humans. At least it will confuse the historians. As the meeting ended and people scattered to prepare for the impossible battle ahead, Fleet Commander Vraxis stood looking at Earth through the viewport. The small blue planet that had broken his mind and rebuilt it into something new. Worth defending, he said to himself in his new, complex way of thinking. Worth dying for, Admiral Park agreed, standing beside him. The quantum cascade weapon was 3 days from Earth. The galaxy watched, and humanity prepared to be a weapon one more time. The Draconian Empire's second fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 500 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. At the center of the formation, the massive flagship Eternal Dominion carried the quantum cascade weapon that would end all life on Earth and make the solar system uninhabitable for 1,000 years. Captain Minho Kang stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride, watching the enemy fleet approach. Beside his small frigate, 300 awakened Draconian warships waited. Earth's defense fleet of 47 ships looked tiny in comparison, but they were there anyway. Nobody was running. All ships report ready, Hana Choi announced from the communications station. Her voice was steady despite the fear everyone felt. Admiral Una Park broadcast from the command carrier. This is Admiral Park to all vessels. In a few minutes, we're going to face an enemy that wants to exterminate humanity for the crime of being complicated. They think we're a disease that needs to be purged from the galaxy. They're probably right that we're complicated, but they're wrong that it's a disease. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity has always been a mess. We've made terrible mistakes. We've hurt each other. We've nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. But we've also created beauty. We've shown kindness. We've learned to forgive former enemies. The Draconian warriors fighting beside us are proof that even the most rigid minds can learn to change. Minho glanced at his sensor display. The enemy fleet was accelerating toward them. Today we fight not just for Earth, Admiral Park continued. We fight for the idea that complexity is strength, not weakness. That changing your mind is courage, not failure. That holding contradictions makes you wise, not broken. If we die today, we die proving that being human means something. Fleet Commander Vraxis transmitted from his flagship. Warriors of the Awakened Fleet, this is your commander. The Empire is coming to destroy us because we dared to evolve. They fear what we have become. Let us show them that fear is well-founded. Fight with the fury of those who have glimpsed freedom and will not return to chains. The two fleets closed on each other. The Empire's commander, a Draconian named Karsoth, broadcast his own message. Fleet Commander Vraxis, you and your warriors are contaminated with human weakness. The High Council has declared you all traitors. Surrender the humans and accept cleansing, or be destroyed with them. Vraxis's response was immediate. I was weak when I thought only in certainties. I am strong now that I can hold doubts. You are the contaminated one, Karsoth, contaminated with fear of growth. Then you will burn with them. The battle began. The awakened Draconians fought differently than the Empire's forces expected. Instead of the rigid, coordinated tactics the Empire was famous for, they improvised. They adapted. They made decisions that seemed illogical but worked anyway. They protected Earth's smaller ships even when it left them vulnerable. They broadcast messages to the Empire's fleet, not threats, but invitations to join them in transformation. Captain Minho led a squadron of human and Draconian ships against the Empire's left flank. The awakened Draconians fought with passion instead of cold efficiency. They questioned their own tactics mid-battle and changed strategies on instinct. It was messy and chaotic and somehow effective. They're fighting like humans, Hana observed with wonder. They learned from the best, Minho replied, dodging enemy fire. But despite their passion and creativity, the numbers were against them. For every Empire ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The quantum cascade weapon continued its slow approach toward Earth, protected by layers of warships. Dr. Sora Imu worked frantically in Earth's main broadcasting station. She had gathered every piece of human culture, every contradiction, every paradox that made humanity what it was. Wars and peace treaties, genocides and civil rights movements, environmental destruction and conservation efforts, acts of hatred and acts of love. The entire messy, complicated, beautiful, terrible story of humanity compressed into a transmission. We're ready, Sora reported to Admiral Park. Every broadcasting tower on Earth, every communications satellite, every ship in our fleet. When you give the word, we can send 8 billion simultaneous transmissions directly into their ships. Will it work? Admiral Park asked. I have no idea, Sora admitted. It worked the first time by accident. Doing it intentionally? It might do nothing. It might break them like it broke the First Fleet. Or it might make them so angry they destroy us faster. Those are terrible odds. Welcome to being human. Admiral Park watched the battle unfold. Earth's forces were losing ground. The quantum cascade weapon was charging. They had minutes, not hours. Do it, Admiral Park ordered. Broadcast everything. Let them see what broke their first fleet. Let them decide if understanding us is worth the risk. 8 billion humans broadcast their consciousness into space. Not as an attack, but as an invitation. Every human on Earth contributed their memories, their thoughts, their feelings. Children and elderly, scientists and artists, soldiers and teachers. The whole messy, contradictory family of humanity opened their minds and said, "This is what we are. This is why we're worth understanding." The transmission hit the Empire's fleet like a wave. Every Draconian warrior suddenly experienced what their transformed comrades had experienced. The full weight of human complexity, human contradiction, human paradox. Some ships immediately went dark, their crews overwhelmed like the First Fleet had been. But others hesitated. Their warriors felt the crushing weight of human experience and didn't immediately collapse. They were prepared this time. They knew what was coming, and some of them chose to accept it. Commander Karsoth felt the transmission crash into his mind. 8 billion lives. Millions of years of accumulated history, joy and sorrow, creation and destruction, beauty and horror. Everything that made humanity impossible to categorize. His neural pathways screamed. His consciousness tried to flee. But somewhere in the chaos of human experience, he found something unexpected. A human memory of a warrior who had chosen peace, a soldier who had befriended his enemy, a general who had wept for the lives he had taken, strength and regret, victory and guilt, pride and shame, all in one being. "Stop," Karsoth transmitted suddenly. "All ships, cease fire." His second-in-command protested. "Commander, the contamination is truth," Karsoth interrupted. "The humans are not attacking us with a weapon. They are showing us who they are, and I am uncertain if destroying them is correct." The word uncertain had never been spoken by a Draconian commander before. Across the Empire's fleet, hundreds of ships stopped firing. Their crews wrestled with the human transmission, some breaking, some holding, all changing. The rigid certainty that had defined their species for millennia cracked and light poured through. But not all of them stopped. Nearly 200 ships remained committed to the Empire's original mission. Their commanders rejected the transmission, shut down their receivers, and focused only on their target. The quantum cascade weapon continued its approach. Fleet Commander Vraxis saw what was happening. The Empire's fleet was fracturing, split between those willing to change and those determined to remain certain. But the weapon was still active, still charging, still approaching Earth. "All awakened ships," Vraxis commanded. "Focus on the Eternal Dominion. The weapon must not fire." The awakened Draconians and Earth's fleet threw everything they had at the flagship. Vraxis's own ship took devastating damage pushing through the Empire's defensive line. His bridge filled with smoke, and his crew called for retreat, but he refused. "Earth did not retreat when I came to destroy them," Vraxis said. "I will not retreat now." His ship rammed the Eternal Dominion's shields. The impact created an opening. Captain Minho saw it and didn't hesitate. "All power to weapons," he ordered. "Target the weapon's power core." Soul's Pride fired every weapon it possessed through the gap Vraxis had created. The shots penetrated the flagship's shields and struck the quantum cascade weapon's charging mechanism. The weapon didn't explode. It simply stopped charging. The energy that would have ignited Earth's atmosphere dissipated harmlessly into space. Commander Karsoth watched the weapon fail. He felt relief. And then he felt horror at feeling relief. His rigid worldview was already crumbling. "All ships, stand down," he transmitted. "I need time to think about this." The battle stopped. 500 Empire ships, 300 awakened ships, and 47 human vessels floated in space, surrounded by debris and damaged hulls. Nobody had won, but Earth had survived. Admiral Park broadcast to all ships. "We're not your enemies, we never were. We're just different. And different doesn't have to mean dangerous." Slowly, carefully, the Empire's ships that had stopped firing began communicating with the awakened fleet. Warriors who had fought each other minutes ago now asked questions, shared experiences, tried to understand. Not all of the Empire's ships stayed. Nearly 200 vessels, their commanders refusing to accept uncertainty, retreated from the solar system. They would return to the Empire and report that the contamination was worse than feared. But over 300 Empire ships remained, their crews choosing to experience the human transmission fully, to risk transformation rather than remain certain and unchanged. The galaxy watched in shock as the Draconian Empire fractured before their eyes, split by a simple question: is understanding worth the pain of change? 50 years had passed since the day the Draconian fleet disappeared near Earth and changed the galaxy forever. Captain Minho Kang, now an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, stood in the memorial garden on Earth. Around him, trees from a dozen different worlds grew together in deliberate chaos. Draconian memory oaks stood beside Earth maples. Crystalline flowers from the Crescent Nebula bloomed next to simple human roses. The garden was a living contradiction, and it was beautiful. "Still thinking about that day?" a deep voice asked behind him. Minho turned to see Fleet Commander Vraxis, also aged but still imposing despite his years. The massive Draconian walked slowly now, using a staff carved from wood from both their worlds. "Every day," Minho admitted. "We almost died, all of us, and we survived by accident." "Not accident," Vraxis corrected gently. "By being exactly what you are. Complicated, contradictory, impossible to define. The galaxy has learned much from you in 50 years. They walked together through the garden. Other visitors were there, human and alien alike. The garden was open to all species now. The quarantine had been lifted decades ago, though not without struggle. The years after the battle had been difficult. The Draconian Empire had fractured into 17 different factions. Some clung to the old ways, rejecting the transformation entirely. Others embraced change so completely they barely resembled Draconians anymore. Most existed somewhere in the middle, wrestling with uncertainty and learning slowly. The galaxy had watched this transformation with fear at first, then fascination. Other species began studying human culture carefully, testing their own minds against humanity's paradoxes. Some collapsed like the first Draconian fleet. Others found ways to process complexity without breaking. All of them changed. Dr. Sora Im, now Earth's chief scientific advisor, had spent decades helping alien species adapt to complexity. Her institute on Earth had become a center for what some called complexity therapy, and others called learning to be confused without dying. The key is not to understand everything at once, Sora often told her alien students. Humans don't understand ourselves either. We just learn to be comfortable not understanding. We learned to hold questions without needing immediate answers. Admiral Una Park had retired 20 years ago, but her legacy lived on. Earth's defense fleet had grown to over 300 ships, but they rarely needed to defend anything. Instead, they escorted diplomatic missions and helped transport refugees from species who had tried to process human complexity too quickly and needed help recovering. The Galactic Council had changed completely. The old empires based on certainty and domination had crumbled. In their place, messy coalitions formed, argued constantly, and somehow avoided major wars. Humans served as mediators in conflicts across the galaxy, not because they were wise, but because they were comfortable with the idea that both sides might have valid points. It's exhausting being everyone's therapist, Sunho An had once complained, during a particularly difficult negotiation between two alien species who couldn't understand why they both felt right. Welcome to being human, Ambassador Telvin had replied. The alien diplomat, once fearful of Earth, had become one of humanity's closest allies. You gave us the gift of confusion. Now you must help us learn to live with it. The reformed Draconian collective, led by Varaxis, had become Earth's strongest partner. The transformed Draconians still struggled with complexity, but they embraced the struggle. They built societies that valued questions over answers, growth over stability, change over certainty. But not all Draconians accepted this path. The pure empire, consisting of those who had rejected transformation, viewed Earth with hatred. They lived in isolation, clinging to their old ways, training their young to resist human influence. Twice they had attempted to attack Earth. Twice they had been stopped, not by weapons, but by their own warriors deserting when exposed to human culture. They will try again, Vraxis said, as he and Minho sat on a bench overlooking a memorial statue. My people who rejected change will always hate what you represent. Change is scary, Minho replied. I understand why they resist. That is very human of you, Vraxis said, with what might have been a smile, to understand those who wish you harm. The memorial statue before them depicted a strange scene, a 12-foot-tall Draconian warrior standing beside a small human, both looking up at the stars. The plaque at the base read, "To the 450,000 Draconian warriors who looked into humanity's mirror and chose to change, and to the 8 billion humans who survived being human long enough to show others it was possible." Dr. Nari O, now elderly but still teaching psychology, walked past with a group of young students from various species. She was explaining the concept of cognitive dissonance. Humans feel uncomfortable when they hold contradictory beliefs, she told the students. But instead of resolving the dissonance immediately, we often just sit with it. We allow ourselves to believe two opposing things and see what happens. Sometimes one belief wins. Sometimes they merge into something new. Sometimes we just stay contradicted forever. And we learned that's okay. A young Draconian student raised a claw. But how do you make decisions if you believe contradictory things? Carefully, Nari replied with a gentle smile. We make decisions carefully, knowing we might be wrong, accepting that we'll probably have to change our minds later. It's not efficient, but it's honest. Earth's cities had changed too. Alien districts were common now, with architecture and customs from dozens of worlds mixed with human culture. In Seoul, where Minho had been born, a Draconian learning center stood next to an ancient Buddhist temple. The two buildings looked nothing alike, but somehow they fit together. Children played in parks supervised by parents from multiple species. Young humans learned alien languages, while alien children learned human sports. Mixed species friendships were common. Mixed species conflicts were also common, but people had learned to handle conflict without demanding extermination. My granddaughter is dating a Crescent Nebula student, Minho mentioned casually. Vraxis made an interested sound. How do you feel about that? Confused, nervous, happy for her, worried about the practical challenges, hopeful that they'll figure it out. Minho laughed. So basically, I feel human about it. You contain multitudes, Vraxis said. Still, Hana Choi, who had been the first to see the Draconian fleet go dark all those years ago, now ran Earth's main communication network. She facilitated billions of transmissions daily between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. Information flowed freely now, though some species still limited their exposure to human culture, afraid of the transformation it might trigger. Dr. Rena Cho had become the galaxy's leading expert on neural adaptation. She had helped dozens of species develop techniques to process complexity without experiencing the catastrophic collapse the first Draconian fleet had suffered. Her work had saved countless lives and minds. The trick is gradual exposure, she explained in her lectures. You can't dump the entire weight of human civilization onto an unprepared mind. You have to introduce contradictions slowly. Let neural pathways build bridges before adding more weight. Some species had proven completely incompatible with human complexity. Their neural architecture simply couldn't adapt. These species maintained polite but distant relations with Earth, communicating only when necessary and keeping their populations shielded from human cultural broadcasts. Not everyone can handle us, Admiral Park had said during her retirement speech. And that's okay. The lesson isn't that everyone has to think like humans. The lesson is that different types of thinking can coexist without one trying to exterminate the other. The pure Draconian Empire had sent one final message to Earth 10 years ago. It was brief. We will outlast you. Your chaos cannot sustain itself forever. When it collapses, we will still be here, unchanged and eternal. Earth's response, written by a committee of humans and transformed Draconians, was equally brief. Maybe you will outlast us. Maybe certainty is more durable than doubt, but we'll have lived more fully in our chaos than you will in your eternity. As the sun set over the memorial garden, more visitors arrived. It was the anniversary of the day the fleet went dark, and every year people gathered to remember. Jinho Bayek, the engineer who had first discovered what the Draconians were doing when they stopped, gave a speech to the assembled crowd. 50 years ago, we learned that being human was dangerous, he said. Not to us, but to beings who needed simple answers. We didn't mean to be a weapon. We still don't. But our complexity, our contradictions, our refusal to fit into neat categories, these things can shatter minds that demand order. He paused, looking at the diverse crowd before him. Humans, transformed Draconians, and representatives from dozens of alien species who had learned to process complexity. We've spent 50 years trying to figure out what this means, and honestly, we still don't know. But we've gotten comfortable not knowing. We've learned to live with questions. And maybe that's the real gift we gave the galaxy. Permission to not have all the answers. Fleet Commander Vraxis stood to speak next. His old voice still carried authority. I came to Earth to conquer a primitive world, he said. I was certain of my superiority, certain of my righteousness, certain that I understood the universe. Earth took my certainty and shattered it. For weeks, I was trapped in your collective consciousness, drowning in contradictions. It was the worst experience of my life. He paused. His transformed mind allowing something his original self could never have felt. a sense of humor about his own suffering. It was also the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned that I could be wrong, that I could change my mind. That strength isn't about never breaking, but about how you rebuild yourself afterward. Humanity didn't conquer my fleet. You freed us from the prison of certainty. Some of my people will never forgive you for that, but I will be grateful until I die. The crowd applauded. Not everyone. Some of the more recently transformed aliens still struggled with the concept of showing appreciation, but most joined in. As darkness fell, the memorial garden lit up with bioluminescent plants from a dozen worlds. The lights flickered in patterns that had no rhythm, no order, just beautiful chaos. Minho and Vraxis sat together in comfortable silence, two old warriors who had faced each other across a battle that was won without weapons and lost without defeat. "Do you think the pure empire will ever change?" Minho asked finally. "Perhaps," Vraxis replied. "Or perhaps they will remain rigid forever. I used to think I needed to know the answer to such questions. Now I can simply wonder and be at peace with wondering." "You've become very human," Minho observed. "And you've become very patient for a human," Vraxis countered. "We've rubbed off on each other." Somewhere above them, in Earth orbit, the original Draconian ships still floated. They had been converted into research stations and cultural centers, living monuments to the day everything changed. Young humans and young Draconians studied together in them, learning each other's histories, preparing for a future built on confusion instead of certainty. The galaxy had been forever altered by the simple act of one species trying to understand another. Empires had fallen. New alliances had formed. War had given way to argument, domination to negotiation, certainty to endless fascinating doubt. And at the center of it all sat one small blue planet whose only crime was being impossible to categorize, whose only weapon was being themselves, whose only victory was surviving the weight of their own contradictions long enough to teach others the same difficult skill. Earth had disappeared the Draconian fleet not into death, but into transformation. And in doing so, they had transformed the galaxy itself into something messy and uncertain and alive with possibility. "Worth defending," Vraxis said quietly, echoing his own words from 50 years ago. "Worth dying for," Minho agreed, as Admiral Park had said. "But better to live for," a young voice added. They turned to see Minho's granddaughter standing there, with her Crescent Nebula partner, both young and uncertain and hopeful. "Much better to live for," Vraxis agreed. And under the chaotic lights of a garden that celebrated contradiction, old warriors and young lovers alike looked up at stars that no longer represented inevitable conquest but infinite possibility. The Draconian fleet had disappeared on Earth, and the galaxy was still reeling in shock. But it was learning to reel with hope instead of fear.